Okay. I will share my screen. So we have an agenda. I copy paste this from somewhere, so we do new phases. Maybe everybody tells maybe a bit about themselves. I mean, we're not going to do that every call, but I mean, for now it's useful. So I will start. I am Ruben. Ruben Koster. I've been working with Bosch for, I don't know, a long time, 7 years or something, at least, for a long time at Stark & Wayne, and recently for VMware, where I'm now part of the Bosch ecosystem team. And on the Foundation and Infrastructure Working Group, I'm the tech lead. Behan, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Behan. I'm from SAP. I'm working with Bosch, I think, since 2015. I did Dojo at that time in San Francisco, and I've been part of the Bosch Team Europe, so-called. And yeah, since then I'm working with Bosch, and at the moment I'm working also in different things in Cloud Foundry from customer perspective. And I'm the technical lead from SAP side for Bosch.
Should I go next? So I'm Diego. I'm based out of London, and I work for VMware. I joined VMware through the Pivotal acquisition. I joined Pivotal back in 2016, and I think since then I work with Bosch. I worked at various teams at Pivotal. I worked with the Bosch team at some point, and I think that's it really. Fernando, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Fernando. I'm based in Seville, in Spain. I work with Diego, the same team he's working, and I joined VMware last year, and it was my first contact with the Bosch ecosystem. Next in my screen is Ramon Macaulay. So please.
Okay. I'm Ramon Macaulay. I'm working currently for Stark & Wayne. I worked with Bosch for like the beginning of time, I think. So yeah, the whole Cloud Foundry Bosch ecosystem. I think Ram is the next one.
Hey folks, my name is Ram Ayangar. I'm based out of Chennai in India. I work with the Cloud Foundry Foundation as a developer advocate. And yeah, I'm here to help folks with any support that they might need in terms of organizing the working groups or anything else. And also here to learn as much as I can from everybody. Chris?
Hey all, yeah, I'm Chris Clark, operations manager for the Cloud Foundry Foundation. So yeah, recently relocated from the Bay Area to Atlanta, Georgia, which makes these calls a lot easier. And yeah, you know, for anyone that needs any technical support for you know, operational things, like you need new repositories or stuff, you can reach out to me. Obviously very soon, hopefully once all the working groups are set up and things are really in motion, there'll be other mechanisms for that. But you know, if anyone needs anything, you know, Docker Hub or GitHub or Slack or anything related, please reach out. But yeah, excited that we're kicking off these calls and that the working groups are really starting to take place.
Okay, I think that was everybody. Next item on the agenda, I thought it might make sense to like review a bit what we've been doing. We did like a soft start of like trying to at least, so one of the main objectives we have as a group, I think, is like making sure that pull requests get merged. And for that, we have approvers that need to approve pull requests, and we need to coordinate that. So that's like one of the main tasks we have as a group. Yeah, we did a bit of experimentation there, and maybe it makes sense to review a bit what we've done and what works, what doesn't work. Let me show what we are currently doing. So we have a project board. It's also, I think, in the meeting invite. I don't know if it's there. At least, so yeah. Incoming things, and so what I'm currently doing is assigning the incoming items just a bit at random, like just do like a quick estimate of like who would be a good fit for this based on context, but that like I can be off there, so maybe I don't know if people think that's like a useful way to do it, or that we should maybe have more of a different approach where we maybe people pick it up themselves. But yeah, there's that part, and then there's the reviews. The smaller things I think are being merged pretty quickly. But we have some things that have been blocked for a while now. Without progress. We'll come to that later. But yeah, like anybody wants to say something about what has worked for them, how they see this process?
I just go once in a week. I just go to that board and just select one that I think I can pick up quickly. I'll just do that. And yeah, if you assign me, then I will also pick it up. So
yeah, it's the question of like push versus pull, right? Do we want people to come in and pick up work, or do we actively push work?
I think because it's still in the beginning, I think we can do a bit of both. So if you see that it's already there for a week, you can just assign people. I don't know, just once a week, you can just say, okay, still hasn't been assigned to someone, still someone hasn't picked it up. Now I basically force you to review the damn thing. Maybe that's, maybe
I mean, force is a big word, I guess.
Yeah,
also
okay.
Like we're here from.
At least you get a notification, like
yeah,
someone needs to pick it up and you're the one.
Yeah. So the thing is, like with a week, I think that's too long. As in, currently, not all things go through pull requests. I mean, we still have the VMware folks who just commit to master sometimes. But if so, ideally we iterate on this process and get things merged more quickly, right? Because ideally everything should go through pull request, but before we can start doing that, we need to have like a proper throughput. Otherwise, the whole system grinds to a halt. So, I mean, I don't know if it's realistic, but ideally we should be able to merge it at least within a week, and maybe even shorter for smaller things.
Yeah.
So that's why.
The problem is we're not doing it. We are not having a lot of pull requests at the moment, so it's a bit.
But I mean, still, there's quite a lot that are currently in flight.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what came in today. We have three, so there's 3 pull requests that came into just today. So I mean, that is actually quite a lot.
Yeah, I concur.
We should have statistics on this, but I'm not there yet.
I don't know if it's the right time, but I noticed that we didn't, Diego nor me presented why or what kind of work we are doing in those repositories and why we are here in this working group. So maybe that's something to share context with you, because we don't know what will be the best way to collaborate and to work in those repositories. So maybe it's not ideal that we have merge permissions, or it is ideal, but with some conditions. So I don't know if, Diego, do you feel like sharing the view of Cryogenics team and why we want to have context on the working group and see how to collaborate with you?
Cool, I can do that. So the Cryogenics team at VMware tries to take some components, can be like VMware components or components from Cloud Foundry, the platform that the VMware ships within its like proprietary, not proprietary, but enterprise offering of Cloud Foundry. And we try to automate as much as we can in terms of bumping packages, making sure the project is healthy, automate minor releases, for example, releasing patches and things like that. Just so that like we can reduce the burden of like maintaining those projects and waiting until the point someone wants to come and add any features to that project. So the Cryogenics team won't be actually adding features. We're just trying to work on this automation to make sure that the components are healthy and being looked after and being bumped and things like that. So I'm saying that because we invest heavily in automation. And for example, the components we look after, we try to build a system where, for example, in this case, we use Dependabot. Every time there is a new dependency for a component, Dependabot will spot that, try to create a pull request, and then the pull request will run all the tests and everything and try to validate that new version against the tests that we have. And if it works, and if our pipelines are green, then our pipelines will auto-merge these bumps. And that was what we've been doing so far with some of these components. So some of the components we look after, they are part of the Cloud Foundry Foundation. And then I think with the work you've done to converge around this new pull request model, we're using some authentication methods and permissions that have been removed or changed. That's okay. I think what we're interested on is discussing a model where we can still sort of abide by the rules or the processes that you're all designing right now, but also something that we could leverage and keep this sort of automation aspect of our work. And like for changes that are not like adding features or like changing the design of the code, just like bumping dependence and small things like maybe CI configuration, we'd like to keep those flowing in a sort of a more automated way and automate those as much as possible. And in order to do that, we need like credentials of like some machine user that would be able to like auto merge if the pipeline is green and things like that.
I think like,
hopefully that was clear.
Yeah, no, that was clear. And I think so the goal is to have like we're not gonna step in the way of bots. I think it's just the situation that has happened with the backup and restore repo, I think has something to do with the move from the Cloud Foundry incubator to the Cloud Foundry org, and then the permissions were basically reset. So we just have to figure out the right permissions for that bot user to resolve those issues. But you do bring up an interesting topic, which is like, what do we do with like pipeline changes, like things that are not functionally, like we're not functionally changing anything. We're just, I don't know, fixing pipelines basically. Are those things we want to review? right? Or how do we want to deal with those? Because in my experience, like fixing pipelines and having to go through PRs or having to go through can be a bit painful and like slow you down a bit. And usually when you're fixing CI, you are a bit in a hurry, or you want to have it green. But that would be maybe something to bring up with the TOC in general, right? It's not something I think we can decide, but maybe having like an exception for like CI directories, right? Something where the tasks and the pipelines live could be something potentially interesting too, like for speed purposes. I mean, we can try it first without and just do a PR based model, but if that starts to become to slow us down, I think CI would be a potential interesting area to have different rules for.
Probably.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking that I think it is in our interest to cryogenics and VMware in general to for those PR that we merge to provide some visibility on the validation we have performed. I think it's something we are working on, so that may help to have better visibility on why things get merged automatically and so on, not completely opaque about our processes and so on.
I think Ruben is a bit frozen for me.
Yeah, for me as well. And he's gone.
So you have your own test which you can execute to validate changes in Bosch. Is that correct? For example, when you want to bump something in Bosch.
Yep, we go on, Diego.
I was just about to say that I think like there are, in my mind, like two sort of overlapping priorities. So like I'm coming here from the cryogenics point of view, and I'm talking about the repos and the components that cryogenics oversees within VMware, which is like not clear at all for folks in the CFF and the outside. But to your point, like we do not work with Bosch, and Bosch is like a more like sort of a much bigger component in the project, and I think like there are much more people and companies interested on it. So I think that would be like a different story, and I think Ruben started to like maybe take this idea that cryogenics wanted to like fast track PRs that are like our PRs bumping dependencies, or like PRs just changing like bits of CI and things like that, and maybe differentiating that from like PRs that would like change other things. But like I think this conversation, this differentiation hasn't happened for Bosch yet, and I think like the components we've been talking about and at the top of my head that we look after and which are in this working group are the BBR components, I think, only. So so when we talk about this fast tracking PR system, like I think we are more talking about BBR than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like why I'm especially talking about this is because, for example, we have a lot of repos that just like have in CI dependency bumper jobs, right? That would bump dependencies, run some tests, and then commit and push. So those don't even go through a PR, right? And in essence, dependabot is the same. It's just creating a PR. So those types of things should. I mean, there's no. I don't even know how it would start a review. Right, what would I look for? I mean, you look if CI is green and then you merge, right? That's all you can do. So those types of PRs, also like in the automation for the generating that board, I've explicitly excluded dependent bots, and there's a few other bots that do similar things. I've excluded those because they just generate noise, and I don't think it makes sense for this whole review process to go over those changes. So yeah, those should just be like free to merge basically for the team maintaining that repo, I believe. But I would even go further, maybe, right, with like maybe saying we don't need reviews on like the CI directory, as in like pipelines and tasks and those types of things. But I'm not sure about that yet, right? That's more something to bring up maybe with the TOC if we have like a bit more mileage with this process and we notice that it's becoming cumbersome. That I think would be a good candidate to also have differentiation on.
I think on that point, sorry, maybe just before we move on, for some components, when it comes to pipelines are not sort of a vendor agnostic. For example, if you take the case of VMware, there are a lot of pipelines for some like components that would require some sort of a VMware either infrastructure or proprietary bits to run. That hasn't been an issue so far, I think, because companies have sort of taken ownership of specific components. So like, for example, VMware is sort of more involved with maybe BBR than other companies. And then like VMware has set up CI for that. And it's been okay so far. But then because of that, I think VMware teams allow themselves to sort of just like change CI and push, because like there's already a lot of VMware stuff in there. Anyways, if in the future we feel the need that CI should be more like vendor agnostic and more like open source friendly, so that maybe anyone who would clone a project would take that CI folder in the repo and be able to set up their own CI on their company or within their development environment. I think like that would have been like a sort of a work stream on its own. And maybe at that point we'll be talking about like not, like a VMware sponsored CI or like an SAP sponsored CI, but maybe a CFF CI or CFF concourse or something like that with CFF resources. We're not there yet, but I think, reviewing pull requests for CIs would make more sense in my head in that context, where like CIs are like Cloud Foundry Foundation, provided things and not like vendor provided things. I think as long as it stands something like vendor provided, I think like teams would just keep like changing CI and like just try to roll them, like to push them through. I'm just bringing that up, for example, because like in some of the pipelines we have like specific VMware bits. And for example, if I ask someone who is not VMware to review that with me, it will be like, I don't see a meaning in doing that, frankly, because like I would have to explain like internal VMware stuff to like another person who works for another company, and it will be a bit weird.
Yeah, there's too much overhead there, right? Too much context that people don't have, and that is actually not that valuable to them.
But yeah, making CIs agnostic is, it's
a long-term goal, and we have that. We have one thing, right, where we have the bionic stem cell is on a foundation-owned infrastructure.
Yeah, you know how long that took me, right? It was just slaying dragons along the road the whole time.
Yeah, I know that was a long process, but I think JJ or Jeremy,
yeah, it will be faster because I made some things like a whole easier, but yeah, it still has a lot of these really specific things in there.
Yeah, but I mean, like that will be actually the first project where we collaborate across like the companies on like a shared infrastructure.
Yeah, that's true.
CI. So I think that would be a good candidate to have that like where we would review CI changes, right? Because there you are collaborating on the whole thing. For the rest, for most of the other repos, for now, I think it's better to focus on like functional changes or like things that are actually changing the behavior of the software and not so much the CI. But yeah.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement that Autobots and they don't need to be PRs, and we just ignore them and automatic, because that's what it started with, basically. So the question, right? Ruben is frozen again. There's probably too much snow on his satellite disk or something. Sweden issues.
That was my understanding as well. Back to your point, Ramon. And also, I think for components that fall in this case where CI is provided by a company, I think that company should have more flexibility in terms of,
Yeah.
like maybe merging their own CI, their own PRs, or, like just pushing to master, because like they would have all the context on their CI, right? And it would be weird for other companies to like review pull requests with them. I think these are the two cases that come to mind.
Yeah, I agree as well. But yeah, the problem that is all this, there are hundreds of repositories. No one is an owner, and I think we try to solve it all. Just that we don't get PRs that are there for 2 years.
Apparently, every time a train passes my new house, my internet connection goes away. And that's interesting because we just bought a train station, so there's trains passing the house. They just installed the new internet today, so yeah, there's gonna be some iteration on that. Yeah, wanted to capture what we discussed. I think Ramon was doing that, but let's put that in the notes. So autobumping bot PRs don't require reviews. Right, we just want green CI there. Then we can merge. So are we all in agreement that for vendor specific, so vendor owned CI systems don't require reviews? So change.
Yeah, I think so for now. We can always change that back, right?
Okay. Yeah, and bots in general, we still want bots. I mean, they are, but I don't think we need to have a rule or something about that. It's just we need to fix the cryogenics thing for that one specific repo, but I don't think that was just caused by something else, right? The move of the incubator stuff. So, we would, I think it's best to set something up, Fernando, you and me maybe, or maybe Diego, to just pair on getting that resolved. Okay, let's do that later. Okay, shall we review some blocked items, right? Because that's the whole point. We want velocity. So if things are blocked, that's not velocity, or that's contrary to, it's not helping. So let's, Beyan, I think you put this one here. You wanted to discuss more broadly.
There was a PR which wanted actually to improve a little bit description of the tests and so on, and we start the discussion here. And I think the PR has a point, and I suggested how we could maybe a little bit make clear what we expect from people contributing to the repo, to Bosch concrete. I don't know whether we have so many people contributing from outside, but at least a workflow which I described here, how we could make it better. So to have somehow the code style linked in the contributing file, pull request workflow. Yeah, and
does that mean that because I think there are multiple code styles now between every repository, everybody did his own thing.
Well, there's a code style in the Bosch directory or the Bosch repo. So
yeah, I know, but there are a lot of things that the repo is like 7 years old. So.
Yeah, so I think the idea with Bosch is that you have Rubocop set up, and there's like a pre-commit hook. So before you, so the lines that you touch, you have to fix the code style. So that, I think that's the rule. There's now something to enforce the code style, and then yeah.
So
we're not going to do it all at once.
Yeah, I didn't want to discuss the code styles and so, because it's a discussion which never ends. But somehow, yeah. And we don't have some guidance which test we expect to be executed for PR, for example. Do we expect at all people to execute some tests? Integration, to execute the integration test is most probably not possible for most of the contributors, and so a little bit more clarity on for people contributing.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
This is maybe something that cryogenics can contribute with, because in many of the components we own right now, we have configured our pipelines to run tests, all the tests we have, against every pull request. And we update the pull request commit status on GitHub following the results of our CI. So like if you submit a pull request, the pipeline will kick in and will like share feedback with you. And this is something that we've done for our components and like BBR for this working group. But maybe this is something we can, share some context on.
And that's working with, you're doing that with Concourse or GitHub Actions?
I think most of it with Concourse. We have some Git Actions here and there, but most of it with Concourse.
Yeah, we need. Yeah, it's nice to have, I think.
Yeah, it's also quite expensive.
Yeah, and how long does it take? And yeah, I don't know.
And you have the potential of leaking credentials, like people can.
Well, it depends on if Diego is the only one. Basically, his team is the only one that sees the CI, and you only get green check or not. Then,
if you make a PR that edits, changes a task to post credentials to some rogue endpoint, like if you have nothing, like if it automatically picks up every PR, you can potentially do that, right?
I think in a world where there is a CI, like a shared CI being run by the Cloud Foundry Foundation, I think like this would not be a problem anymore.
No,
because like people would have access to the logs. But right now, as the CI is on our end and it's not publicly available, the only feedback people would have is the pull request saying, oh, these tests have failed, and like without details actually.
Yep. But you are executing their code, right?
Yeah, but now you're saying you're going to execute their code and they need to be able to go outside the network to post a JSON of credentials.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's something to it's possible, right? But yeah.
Yeah, currently we have been eluding or working around that problem because we don't test or don't go through CI for fork PRs coming from a fork. That is exactly what we are speaking now, I guess. So
Yes.
yeah, I
So,
understand your concern.
There needs to be like a level of trust, right? So if we can limit it to people that have can create branches, so we limit it to PRs from foundation members, I think that would be already a different thing. And I mean, it's not so much a problem if you're running unit tests, right? Because that's cheap. But in lots of cases, we're running against like shared infrastructure that keeps like it's more long running and it's creating actual IaaS resources and costing real money. So that's, yeah, I think why traditionally it has been a bit of a difficult topic for at least things like Bosch Core to do PR, run CI on every PR.
Yeah, batch is expensive.
Yes. But I mean, to get back to this topic, I won't. Sorry. I mean, so we could say something like running tests, just run the unit test, right? And then we do the review. You've done your best with unit tests, and then we can always revert to PR maybe if like something big breaks down the road. But then at least people have already looked at it and verified that it's okay-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I think unit tests should be doable integration tests.
Yeah, and I mean unit tests we could have PR or unit tests on each PR, right? At some point, we're not there yet, but that would be something I would think would be useful to have at least on the repos that have the most traffic, or see the most PRs. But that's I don't think we don't have like really an authority, I think, to like schedule work, right? It's up to the vendor's own backlog on what work to prioritize. We're more here for like making sure that the work that has been done gets approved and gets merged. It's not so much there's not so much roadmap work. I mean, we can collaborate with the TOC on things like the JJ stem cell and stuff, but it's not like we can decide in this group to say, yeah, we're gonna do this. Yeah, we can say we're gonna do this, but then still someone needs to do the work. So, and that's up to like a volunteer, basically.
But it will be the ideal state to have validated PRs.
Yes.
Validated.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's definitely something like, so I have some time to contribute to this whole like making sure that we can collaborate better, right? So my first priority there is making sure that we have like a good visibility into what's open and how to track progress. But the next step would be like make sure that we have better feedback cycles, make reviewing easier, right? And one of those things would be PR CI status things for the places where it's doable. But in the interest of time, is there an action item we want to take here?
So my understanding is I will create a change which implements this, and maybe I will put something like execute the unit tests at least for OPR manually, and
yeah. So you can I would suggest to make like a code suggestion or a suggested change to this PR, so we keep it all in here. And then,
yeah.
okay, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, next item.
It's also from me. So at the moment we are just refactoring agents, the properties for the Bob store, and we have many PRs which are somehow
all linked together.
Yeah, and I don't know which CPI still needs to remove the dependence to the property. I think on OpenStack CPI at least.
Yeah, I think we merged the PR for the thing
GCP
here.
and AWS. I think.
This is AWS and this is Google. Yes, so those are merged.
If we say let's do also OpenStack and then just say you're safe to remove the.
There's also Azure.
There's also Azure and yeah.
There's also ones we don't control, like the CloudStack CPI,
and the other, the IBM one. I don't know.
So yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with a breaking change there. Like if we can, like it's nice that it's optional and that it can be removed. Maybe we can, but I with the Bosch deployment one. Well, I mean, what we could do is like for the CPIs that now support it, remove it in the CPI ops files. But it has to depending. Okay, go ahead.
We can also make, like in those CPI repositories, we can also make the suggestion, at least an issue from, hey, this is what we're going to change, and then maybe down the road we can remove it at the end. But yeah, it is nice to clean up sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then I think. Yeah, let's go with dummy values in the ops file, which we have for the properties.
I mean, it gives you the same end result, right? Or as in, like, you don't have a valid credential or a credential that can still be captured and used, right? It's a credential that doesn't work. So I think that.
For people,
at least from a security point of view, it should satisfy the requirements.
Yeah.
And it's also, and it's not a breaking change, which I like. So because the alternative is like really hard to coordinate, right? Then we need to make sure that all the PRs get merged and released, and that all those things get bumped into Bosch deployment before we can merge that PR, and that would potentially mean that we have something blocked on the board for a month or more.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify. Benjamin was going into the direction to remove all, but it's not doable so fast. Yeah.
No, I mean it's a nice approach, but we cannot remove. So I wouldn't stop, or I would first merge the PR with the dummy values, and then like later down the road, we can have another PR to remove those dummy values once everything has been cleaned up and released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other business?
No? Yeah, who is responsible for the jump box deployment? Do you know that already?
No. Not us.
No, I know.
Also, about merging PRs, I think I've been doing that mostly myself, as in, but maybe. So once the changes are approved, then I just go over the changes or and merge them. But that means that I'm like a bottleneck in the system. I don't think that's ideal.
So how many reviewers needs to be there before we can merge, basically? That's something to agree on.
Yeah, so I'm still in discussing that with the other working groups, like to have a bit of alignment around the different repos or different projects within Cloud Foundry. So I think we're now aiming at 2 reviewers, but maybe that's a bit too much. Also, if people are pairing, you could say that at least maybe counts as 1 additional review. Also, the people they are pairing with maybe is not a reviewer, but I don't know. I mean, you at least have 3 people. Like if you count a pair as 1 review, that means that someone else looks at it, and you have to have 3 people look at it in total, which should be enough, I think.
So
but yeah, those things are still being formalized.
So basically, for now, until that's formalized, we say 2 reviewers. So if there are 2 approved reviews, any of the reviewer who done the last review can just basically do a merge. That's how we should do it, right?
Yeah, in theory, but in practice, the thing is, we also have like CI that can be read and stuff that's not visible. So I think for most of the repos, it makes sense that like one of the VMware folks who also deals with CI would do the final merge, right? Because we want to like have some control of that, like not all CI is read all the time, right? We want to have a bit of coordination, like is CI green enough? Can we merge this? Can we take this thing in? But like that's not true for all repos, right? So some repos are, but we probably should set up something there to make that more clear, which things can be like basically auto merge, or like just if there's approvers, we can merge, and some things where we want more manual control. I will take that as an action item for next call to get more clarity on mapping those things out. Okay, I think that's it. Or is there anything else?
Not really.
Okay. Thanks all for attending our first foundational infrastructure working group meeting.
Nice.
And have a good day.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.
You guys later.
Bye. Bye.